Hello everybody, welcome back to my shooting guide. As promised, today we're going to be taking a look at the other Russian heavy line. Starting off here, we have the T-150. It has 90 hull armor net on the front, sides, and only 75 in the rear. The turret is 90 millimeters all around stock. With the upgraded turret, you get 100 on the fronts and sides, 75 in the rear. Let's go take a look at this in Tank Inspector. Alrighty, here we have the T-150. Looking straight on, looks like, and that's very bottom, so not gonna worry about that. Lower Glacis is looking about 100 to 110, roughly. So if you have a chance, make sure to shoot down there. It doesn't look like these are really weak spots, but it's all the same. Do not shoot right here, this little area right here. That is stronger armor than the rest. As you can see, 138 all the way up to in the 200s. So if you're a tier 6 tank, you're pretty much going to balance this unless you're using some special premium ammo. But the upper plate, it's not as strong in some areas, but it's still pretty strong. 130s, between 130 to 140 up here with the angle. Looking straight on. Just remember this is straight on. And of course this flat area here. This is your best chance to penetrate and do damage. All up here. 95 to 100. 95 to 97 it looks like. With these weak spots. 60, 75. Depending on where you shoot. It looks like the area around the gun is a little bit stronger. But if you're seeing the T-150, you can shoot as whole. Shoot around right here. That'll be your best shot of doing any damage, especially if you have low penetration. As for the turret, it's actually surprisingly weak. In some areas, that is. In some areas, it's 200, even more, 230. In others, it's 90. So, if you're shooting at the mantlet, you may penetrate and do damage, you may not. It all depends on how much RNG likes you that day. As for the sides, yeah. You're gonna have to have a pretty big gun to get through. You're shooting at this angle at the turret. Looks like it's in the 220s. So if you only have the turret to shoot at, shoot up here. But don't shoot too far off to the side. Otherwise, as you see right there, 170 millimeters needed. 130s, but right here, dead in the center. And this little thing, don't shoot at that. It can penetrate. It may damage observation device, but it's not going to do any HP damage, which is kind of what you want when you're playing tanks. As for the sides, yeah, pretty much it's fair game all along here. Only about 100, it looks like. That's not a weak spot. I don't know why you would, but don't shoot here. You're shooting at the side of a gun mantlet. I'm not sure if you'll do any damage. You may hurt the gun, but I can't say if you'll do damage or not. Down here, looks like it's 130s, 140s, depending on where you shoot. So, and 90 all along here. So if you have the side of a T-150, shoot up here at the flat surface of his turret, especially right here. Here it's going to require a little bit more penetration, and right along here, that'll be your best chances. Down here, it's okay armor, 130 millimeters. That's not bad, but you also have tracks in the way that you may have to go through depending on how your shot goes. So it may get absorbed. So be careful when you're shooting down on the very lower part of the tank. The rear, yeah, anywhere down here, 70s. Looks like around here, it's in the 80s, but it's weak. Just like the back of the turret, 75 all around. No problem about it. It's actually stronger on the hatch up top. So shoot at the back. Artillery players, if you hit the top of it, it requires 30 millimeters to go through. Pretty much in most places, at least on top of the turret and in the back. The front, you'll probably be doing a splash damage, but that's it for the T150. Let's move on to the next tank. Next, at tier 7, we have the KV-3. It has 120 millimeters of frontal hull armor and 90 on the sides and the rear. The stock turret has 100 millimeters all around, but the upgraded one, you get 130 in the front and 115 on the side and the rear. So not bad. You're moving up in the world, you're getting more armor. So it is true that this line on the Soviet heavy, this line of Soviet heavies is stronger than the other line. The IS, the IS-3, all of those. As we've seen so far with the T150, we're going to continue that trend. The armor only gets better. So this lower plate here, and just before I keep going, as you can see right here, it's initially designed as a replacement for the KV-1. So the holes of these tanks are going to be very, very similar to each other. At least the KV-1, T150, KV-3, they're going to be pretty much almost identical. Not exactly, but pretty close. But their armor is going to be a little bit different. So down the bottom, we need about 120 millimeters of penetration if you're going head on. And again, as with the T150, this little area right here where the upper and lower glacis plates meet, that's going to be your tough spot to penetrate. As you can see, 219, 140. So if you're a lower tier, you may want to be careful of that. And up here, shooting at the upper plate, upwards of almost 170, depending on where you shoot. Between 115 and 170, depending on what kind of angle you're shooting at. And just as the T150, this area up here, very weak compared to the rest of the tank. It's stronger on the KV-3, but it's still pretty weak. This machine gun, only about 120, so it's about the same weakness as the lower plate. And this port, depending on where you're shooting, it can be weak, it can be strong. Looks like the actual port itself is about 80 to 100, but if you shoot at the upper part, 170. So be careful where you're shooting. Same thing around the machine gun, the extra armor, 200s, Ricochet 200s. So be careful with that. The turret, yeah, don't shoot over here unless you got good penetration. 238. Let's angle it up a little bit. 300, well, that wasn't perfect, but 200s, 215. So be careful with that. The gun mantlet, of course, it's your typical gun mantlet. plenty of spaced armor. In fact, it's mostly spaced armor. Depending on where you're shooting at, as you can see, anywhere between 115 upwards of the 250 range. So if the only thing you have to shoot at is the gun mantlet, I mean, like, try to aim for these rivets. They're very, very small and going to be hard to hit, but if you got nothing else to shoot at, I mean, at least try. Looks like this, you don't want to be shooting up here either. Very strong piece of mantlet right there. I don't know if it's part of the mantlet, I guess. Up here, for being a supposedly weak spot, it's actually pretty strong. 150, 140 depending on where you shoot at. And it's a very small target, so it's going to be difficult to hit. So front, you may want to shoot at this lower plate and this flat piece of armor right here. Let's move on to the sides. About 120, depending on where you're shooting at again. See if we can get a better angle. Yeah, if you're shooting it, shoot it pretty much in the square area here. This is a weak spot. Looks like that's not a weak spot though. But it's only 120 millimeters. It's not that much. You should be able to get through that easy. But the more you go off towards the sides, the stronger the armor does get. Just like the T150, anywhere along here, it's in the 90s, 90 to 100 area. You should be able to penetrate right there. And the same thing as the T150 with the sides. It's 130 down here, but be careful because tracks may get in the way. So you could absorb your shot, and congratulations, you just wasted a shell, did no damage. So if you have a KP3 on the side, oh, I didn't know it did that. Oh, that's cool. Okay. But anyways, if you have a KP3 on the sides, shoot them right here. You'll be guaranteed to penetrate, guaranteed to do damage. And if that's too small of a target, up here, just make sure it is far away from the sides as you can. As far as the back goes, the further down you go, the stronger it gets, but anywhere around here, 90s, 80s. And for the back of the turret, it's actually quite strong. As you can see, those numbers down there, 130s. It's a kind of the same thing with the side. Shoot it in the middle, as center as you can get. That's your best chance. Maybe shoot down a little bit, but you don't want to go down too far, otherwise it's may ricochet off of it. And that hatch is very, very small, but about 150 that is needed to go through that. So I guess that's it for the KP3. Let's move on to the KV4. Alright, at tier 8 we have the mighty KV4, sporting 180 millimeters of frontal hull armor, 150 on the sides, and again 90 on the rear. Now we don't care about the stock turret, but the upgraded one has 180 millimeters up front, as the same as the stock. But it's the sides and the rear where you see the boost. 150 on the sides and 140 on the rear. KV4 is a very strong tank. I always had problems going through this armor. Even with some guns at tier 9, I have problems with it. It's a very well armored vehicle. Just look at this lower plate. 180, 275, 210. So yeah, you're going to be needing at least 190 to go through this bottom plate. So I'd say probably about 200, because most tanks are going to be angled. Or at least a smart plate would be angled. And it looks like around where the two plates come together, 200s, 300s, maybe even where you shoot. There's some well, actually, yeah, most tier 10s will have problems going through that with even premium ammo. Well, not premium, with regular shells. And for the upper plate, yeah, it's very strong. 220s to 240s, 245. So, yeah, if you're in a tier 8, unless you're a tank destroyer, good luck getting through that. Even this previous weak spot on the T150 in the KV3, it's not so weak anymore. You'll need probably about at least 200 millimeters of penetration to get through. These numbers are just huge. But it does have its weak spots. This machine gun right here, only about 140, 130-ish. Just if you get off to the sides a little bit, you ruin your chances. For this little port right here, it is weak on the bottom portion, but once you get to the upper portion, it's about the same as the plate behind it. And up top on the turret, 180s. Yeah, very strong. The gun mantlet, of course, it's made with Stalin in it. 315 millimeters of penetration needed to get through this gun mantlet. Of course, gun mantlets are supposed to be stronger, but this is huge. 386. So yeah, it's same thing. There's rivets going in a line right here and right here. Those are your weak spots, but they are small. And the chances of you hitting them are very slim. Even this hatch on top is very strong. 180, well, 427. 180 to 190 depending on where you shoot up here. So from the front, unless you're a tier 8 with at least 200 millimeters of penetration, I guess there are some tier 7s with that, but if you don't have 200 millimeters of penetration, you pretty much don't have much of a chance to go through the front of a KV4, even its weak spots. Unless you get very lucky with this machine gun. Going on to the sides, 160 on the 150 to 160 on this rear portion. On the front portion, it's a little bit weaker. Up here, it's stronger, 160s, 190, so don't shoot up there, which is part of that hatch, or the hatch was right here, but whatever you want to call it. So on the sides of the KV4, your best chance is going to be, again, this little section right here, but it's still 150 millimeters of armor right there. So you still need to be careful where you're shooting at, otherwise you may go off a little bit to the top, go off a little bit to the bottom. It looks like the bottom is about 130. Some areas are stronger. Looks like the further you go down, the stronger it is. And the further up you go, the stronger it is too. So you have to shoot directly under the tracks, which means the tracks may absorb the shot if your shot goes a little bit high. So shooting down here is going to be tough. If you can, shoot about where the front of the turret and the back of the turret meet at this weld joint, or right along here. That's your best chances of getting through the KV4 on the sides. And at that, your chances aren't even that great if you are a lower tier. The rear. Now we finally get to some weak spots. Weak spots. only about 90, between 90 and 110-ish, depending on where you shoot. So shoot it up on the upper portion of the back. As for the turret, still pretty strong for the back. 150 on this top hatch thing, whatever you want to call it, machine gun, whatever. So yeah, don't shoot up there. This back plate is probably going to be your best chance if you don't have down here showing, but definitely shoot down here if you can. Otherwise, back of the turret, it's your best shot. So the KV-4, very strong tank. Thanks for watching this guide. Comment below which line you want to see next. It doesn't have to be the Soviet Union, it could be American tanks, British tanks, whatever you guys want to see. Put it in the comments below. I'll make sure to read them, and I'll decide what to do after I'm done with this Soviet heavy line. So thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe for more, and we'll see you guys later.